us today. I appreciate everyone being here and everyone who's here in the audience tonight. A couple quick housekeeping notes. I want to thank Commissioner Beeler for being here, but I do know you have to leave early to officiate a funeral, so when you exit us, it's not because you're mad at me or got word that Mike Rubel from the Sheriff's Office Administration is ill and was the same as last week when the tide was turned. Chief Rubel is going to join us again. I know it's not the exact committee member that we set out with, but the goal is to have 2 representatives from the administration and 2 representatives from the Mayor Council. So welcome again and happy to have you participate. This is our second of 4 meetings. The schedule is on the bottom of your agenda for the last 2 meetings. If we always said when we started this, if we needed more meetings, then we would extend it, but we sort of set a goal of having 4 to be concluded before the end of the year. So this is meeting 2 of 4. I think the first meeting was quite successful with giving everybody an opportunity to come to the table, explain their experience and background, help work on where we all see common threads of successes and opportunities for improvement, and sort of set the stage for our second meeting here, which is going to sort of take the first 2 elements of that and see to go forward. So as I said in the email that I sent out to you, now is the kind of time to dig in with some specifics, and the goal is not to try to solve every problem in any way, shape, and form, but to see if there's things that we can do to improve upon. Since you were not here at the last meeting, I'd just like to give a couple minutes to is it Aviles? Aviles, sorry. To just introduce yourself and explain who you are and what, how you're connected to this organization.
All right. I'm Lisa Aviles. I'm the HR director for the Knox County Sheriff's Office. I've been with KCSO for about 1.5 years now. Prior to working with KCSO, I worked for HGTV for 14 years. I did 8 years in recruiting, a division that I started from scratch, 2 years in diversity and inclusion, and 4 years in business and legal affairs. I've been living in Knoxville for 16 years and have always been very involved in our community. I've been fortunate to serve on many boards throughout the years. However, my favorite ones have always been law enforcement related. One being the Police Advisory Review Committee, which I served 2 terms for 6 years total, and the other one, the Public Safety Foundation, a nonprofit organization that provides financial assistance to officers in need from 4 core agencies: KCSO, KPD, UT Police, and Fire Department for the city. I've been on that board since 2010, and I was president and vice president. I've always had an affinity for law enforcement, so I was thrilled when the sheriff asked me to join KCSO leadership. It's truly a privilege to work for this agency. We have a phenomenal workforce, and I'll do anything and everything I can to ensure that the men and women of this agency have a long and fruitful and successful career with us.
Thank you very much. When we get to going around, and since we don't have a light to push your button and recognize, if you want to be recognized, just sort of, I'll do my best to keep track of it and raise your hand, and we'll go old school raising of the hands. First part of our agenda is the review and adoption of the minutes that was sent out to you in advance, the minutes of the last meeting. There are 2 typos that need to be amended. That is the date. It was October 20th, not November 20th. I was a month ahead apparently. And I have an extra me in the first line of the very first part of the minute, so my apologies for that. But are there any changes? Yes, Ms. Gibson.
Second page, first name, second paragraph.
I'm sorry, use your mic, I couldn't hear you.
Second page, second
Sorry.
paragraph.
Okay, no
Like the
C.
restaurant.
Okay, Crystal like the restaurant. All right. Any other changes or revisions to the minutes? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Commissioner, was that you? No, Mr. Broyles. And first by Commissioner Durrett. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are adopted and they will be filed with the commission office. Okay. Item number 3 on our agenda tonight is the discussion on recruitment roles and responsibilities. So this is kind of an open, who wants to go first kind of process like we did last time. But there's 2 main topics I want to talk about tonight to get into. First being recruiting, and second is communications. And the first part of that being recruitment roles and responsibilities. The goal is to sort of identify who is responsible for what and how and why, and then what are areas in where we can improve upon those, and directly related to recruitment. So I didn't put retention in there because I think that's a whole different aspect of these 2 organizations that could really go way deep into the weeds. But I know that part of our early discussion was all about how do we build the workforce, how do we build the team on how do we get people recruited and in, and we haven't yet gotten to the process of how they go through it. So this is sort of piece 1 of just whose role and responsibility it is, and how does it work now, and then what can we do to improve on it. So does anybody want to jump on it?
I don't know.
Okay, Ms. Taylor.
Yes. Currently with recruitment, what we do is we are required by the ordinance to, the rule of 5, if we have 5 applicants on the eligibility list for a particular position.
Come closer on that.
Sorry, can you not hear me?
That's okay, just
Is that
give it
better?
up to perfect.
Obviously, corrections has the most positions, so we supply everybody that we have at any given time for that. I guess recruitment in the past has always been a joint effort between both offices. We used to hold job fairs. We would both go together. Employees with the sheriff's office have gone with us to job fairs recently. Some of the officers, Crystal and a few other patrol officers, have joined us as well. We do most of our recruiting through Indeed and Facebook. And as far as supplying the applicants, we do turn over everybody that we have on the eligibility list when the sheriff's office is hiring for a particular position. So again, in the past, that has been a joint effort. It's not so much that anymore. We've solely been responsible for that. We have met with, and I believe Chief Purvis was there as well back in April when we went to the law director's office. I believe the law director had asked Chief Purvis how come they didn't recruit, and he said that's something they were working on starting.
So can you go back? I was going to ask at the very beginning. You said it's outlined in the the guidebook or the ordinance.
Not necessarily recruitment, but
Okay.
the Merits Council is supposed to supply 5 applicants for every vacant position.
Okay, 5 for 1. Okay, is it outlined in your policies? I think I saw something about it. Do you know?
Section 6.
Section 6
Is the
Okay.
recruitment, yes.
is the recruitment. So let's take a minute to just make sure we're all on the same page here. Recruitment and retention. So it looks like it has steps there, sections 1, 2, and then it gets into eligibility and waivers. So let's just, if I could take a moment just to read the first part. 611, this is section A. All vacancies in the classified service shall be filled by regular appointment, temporary appointment, promotion, transfer, or demotion, and shall be selected from eligible candidates on the furlough list or the current eligibility list. Eligibility list in section B shall be prepared by the council staff, so that's you, for each classification, law enforcement, corrections, and civilian, based upon competitive examination. So, as it's laid out, it's the responsibility of the staff. But what
To create the eligibility.
to create the eligibility list. But what I heard is that in years past, that used to be a bit of a joint effort to go out to job fairs to sort of, but it hasn't been in the past, like recent.
Very recent,
Okay.
yes.
Other things, does anybody want to add to sort of talk about recruitment or kind of how it is now?
Speaking of what Ms. Taylor had said, we do, whenever they're having an event, we have went and assisted with it and still would continue to do that. If there are any future events that they're having, we'd be more than happy to have individuals come and be a part of that. I think where there's a little ambiguity, or at least a concern, they are tasked with the responsibility of providing us the eligibility list and the names of the individuals that are there. We're really not up front in the process. All we can do is we can tell individuals about the sheriff's office, which we still do that. We have individuals that go speak at different schools and different universities and things along those lines from time to time. But as far as our obligation at that point is still to refer them to the merit system. That's where the application process begins for the Knox County Sheriff's Office, is that we can just refer them there for the application process and to begin the hiring process.
Is there can I ask, anybody can answer this, is why was it why was it set up like this? Is this a structure that's normal amongst
For
other?
merit or civil service protected positions, for merit or civil service protected positions, yes, that is a normal, to ensure that every employee goes through the same process and requirements to be eligible for a position in the classified service.
So in other agencies that, essentially we're competing against the
KPD, yes.
KPD does it the same way. Blunt.
Blount County has a merit council. They don't have an actual staff, but they're a much smaller department. I believe they have close to 350 officers, employees under their merit.
And are there, in your budget and your planning, is there specific resources? Is there a recruiting plan? Is there a recruiting set of resources? Is there a...
We have a small budget that we have, but most of ours is through Indeed, and that's where we are recruiting.
Okay, so you're the sole... Right now, the job fairs obviously aren't going out, but pre-COVID, it doesn't sound like those were happening much anyway.
We were doing those, yes.
You were, okay.
We done 2 in February.
Oh, okay. So that's pretty regular. So besides that, it's basically online, trying to just kind of scoop people in as they bet. It's not you're not directly recruiting other people. You're just sort of putting that wide net out.
Right, and that recruiting hasn't really been an issue prior to this current year. I mean, still to this time, they're still filling their positions. I know the sheriff has recently sent out an email last week stating that it takes 6 months or more to get applicants on the eligibility list, which is not true. Also, he stated in that the applicant pool was dwindling, and there wasn't that. No one's ever spoke to me about that, and that is definitely not true.
We'll get into the process
okay,
later, but
that's
the second part of what you said is interesting. Like, you're saying that there are plenty of people that want to work for.
No, I would never say plenty, but they are filling the positions, yes.
Okay.
I mean, the sheriff's office this year alone has been up to over 30 vacancies for corrections positions. I believe they've filled those multiple times. In fact, they've hired 120 corrections officers since January 1st.
Said that again. There were up to 30 positions.
We get vacancy lists from the HR department, and several times this year that has gone over 30 vacant positions in the corrections department.
Okay. Because it all starts, if I remember our discussion last week, everything starts with corrections.
I'm sorry. Well, no, there's civilian positions too. So any vacant position that's in the classified service, which includes civilian, corrections, or law enforcement, we are given a vacancy list from HR that tells us how many openings that there are.
Okay, and you said KCSO has filled how many?
120 corrections positions as of yesterday. A total of 160.
That's for this year?
Just for corrections since January 1, yes. A total of 167 positions have been filled. Merit positions in the classified service with the sheriff's office since January 1. 120 of those 167 being corrections only.
Okay. Does that sound, does this sound like we're all on the same page right now?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate because keep in mind, again, with the Knox County Sheriff's Office, with those individuals that begin in corrections, they may go to patrol. If they have 9 patrolmen that are going out, they're usually pulled from the corrections division. And anytime someone gets promoted, it empties another slot. Anybody goes to pretrial, goes to forensics, and several other locations within the agency, that we lose a correctional officer at that point in time, and so we have to hire for that position.
Mr. Ross?
Question out of curiosity, Ms. Taylor, any idea what the turnover rate is, meaning those who left the department completely, not for promotion, not for lateral transfer, but those who leave, what percentage of that? And secondly, do you conduct exit interviews when departure?
We do not do exit interviews. I believe the sheriff's office just very recently started that within the last few weeks. My best figures that I have gathered over this past 2 years has been about a 16 to 20% turnover rate.
Any idea how that compares with other departments of similar size?
I can give you some numbers if you want.
Sure.
So we have out of 144 turned individuals. So they left, they either resigned, they left, they died, they retired, etc. We had 24 leave for family reasons, 15 were dismissed for cause, 8 retired,
Wait,
10
15 for what?
cause, there was a cause.
Oh, cause,
Yeah.
sorry.
8 retired, 10 dismissed during probation, 52 left for better pay, and 3 deceased. So that's 112 that we had data available for. 41 of those left under 1 year probationary period, so they are really not merit protected.
Can I?
And we have 32 that we don't know quite why they left, because it was before we were tabulating the data.
Has that information been shared with the
No,
mayor?
we just pulled that today.
Okay.
So my point in asking that, Mr. Chairman, is that part of the recruitment process is understanding why people may have departed in the first place. If we say 52% or 52 because of pay, 24 because of family reasons, and we know there's some others that we just can't quite figure out exactly why, we can start to narrow that part of the equation down to say there's some folks who found law enforcement just wasn't for them, and probably the majority said it was bad.
So, I think one of the things that's really interesting is the way it's structured. You all are responsible for recruiting and filling, but you're conducting the exit interviews on the way out to figure out why are they staying and why they're not, which clearly the left hand and the right hand are not communicating. I mean, that goes to our second part of communicating, because if they knew that information, then they may, would definitely want to use that in their recruiting strategy to say, hey, if we're watching this many people go this way for these reasons, or whatever the case may be, perhaps we'll craft our method differently. And I guess I get back to the structural question of why does one side do one side and one side do the other side versus one side do both ends of the spectrum? I mean, if they're responsible for recruiting, then either they should do the in and the out to better craft the in and the out, or you guys should do the in and the out and then put them into the system and be responsible for filling that bucket. I mean, if it's always disjointed, then we're not going to get very far.
Can I say something? Obviously, I've been here only a year and a half, so I'm glad that Chief Purvis is here so he can give historical data of how things were prior to that. Also, Amanda Kitts is here, who has been working in that department for 20 years, so she also knows how things worked prior. I know that you all attended 2 fairs in February, but I was never told about it.
But again, yeah, that's the same thing. There's a disconnect.
Absolutely, there's a disconnect. I feel a lot of the times I'm left out of the conversation, and I'm sure we're gonna get to communication later. But I have no idea what has happened. I'm trying to figure that out. But we're happy to source our folks. And when you're trying to recruit in this environment for a position that is not glamorous like it used to be before, because of the current climate and everything else, females in a position that doesn't pay as much as it does in other agencies, we can't be passive. And putting an ad on Indeed is passive recruiting. We have to be a little bit more proactive and not reactive. And the pipeline is dwindling because we used to have a lot more candidates coming through, and I'm not gonna look at 5, decide on those, go to 5 more. I like to look at the whole entire pipeline, interview, and that's what I do. I interview everybody. So sometimes I've interviewed up to 50-some people in 3 days because I like to interview every single person and start that connection and that build that trust so that we can continue that relationship throughout the recruiting process, the hiring process, and onboarding and retention, because you got to look at that entire life cycle of recruiting. So I'm trying to figure out what happened that this just turned out that way.
Okay. Commissioner Durrett, did you?
Chairman, yes.
Yes.
Prior to our 2 job fairs in February, Ms. Avilas and her staff did attend 2 job fairs that, prior to that we were not aware of, which, until they did ask us for applications, so that's how we knew that they were attending. I did notify the sheriff and actually spoke with the sheriff and got permission for officers to join us to be there because they're the importance of the recruiting and they're that's who people want to talk to when they go to the job fairs. So the sheriff was aware and did allow permission of Ms. Gibson, Corrections Division Captain, to go along with us.
Can I ask you a question? Is, again, part of this is understanding why are we structurally set up the way we are and how does this work? Is there, given that everybody would need to go through the merit council's process, and again, we haven't gotten through that process yet, but everybody has to funnel through that anyway. Is there a reason that the administration can't do the recruiting, put the money behind it, go out, actively pull as many people into the net as possible, and then provide those to you all and take that burden off of you all?
No reason whatsoever, no. But that they absolutely can, yes. No reason why.
Is that something the administration would like to pursue, is to literally be responsible for the proactive nature of going
Yes.
out and recruiting as many people as possible and then providing those?
Yes, but I am concerned that once we turn them over, there's going to be a disconnect.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to the
So
process of what happens when, but just from the go out of,
Yeah.
they don't have the time or resources or staff to do it.
Me too.
You all sound like you want to do it.
Yes. And just to be fair, the 2 job fairs that I attended were 2 months after I had started, so I was still trying to
That's
figure out
fine,
what it was.
and
So
I don't want to go
wanna
backwards.
call that.
No, that's fine. I don't want to go backwards in the thing. I'm just trying to get to the bigger picture of, if you all want to put money and resources and time and effort, and you all can certainly be part of the process, maybe that takes a process off that you all don't have to constantly spend your time and resources on. And then, if they don't recruit enough people for the workforce, then you got no complaint. They got no complaints whatsoever. They can't blame it on you all to say, hey, you didn't give us enough people because you didn't fill the pipeline. So that may be an opportunity that we could, am I reading the tea leaves on this okay?
And we've never had to recruit before in the past, so yes, that
Yeah.
is actually something that definitely needs to happen. Or, even just, ads on their Facebook page, they used
Yeah.
to do that, they have a lot
Yeah,
more.
times are definitely
I mean,
changed in the last 5 or 10 years, so
Yeah, that's not.
people are not lining up like they used to. Okay. Other things about recruitment, again, not getting into what happens when, but just we have the 2 officer representatives. What do you think about where we're heading in this discussion?
Chris will give me the head nod, so I guess it's on me. Oh boy, I'm having a hard time because it's hard for me to step away from what the guys and gals on the street need right now. So it's frustrating for me because Okay, I'm not gonna tiptoe. I mean, I think that's why you.
No,
you're
just
asking here.
try to keep it on
Yeah,
this
no,
topic
I am,
though,
I am,
because
I am.
we can only bite
I
off.
think,
what we
and I'm speaking because my phone, my emails, my text message, everything has blown up since it started, which is a great thing.
Yeah. This is the most people have ever attended a committee meeting in any of Knox County at any time whatsoever. So.
And well, and that's coming from a day when we used to bring in 250 people and pack that room standing only. So, that's where all my frustration comes from, I think. But it's the guys on the street, the guys and gals on the street are like, it's just frustrating because they think we're spinning our wheels on this merit system subject. Like, why are we focused on this? Because the guys on the street need help right now today. And I don't get me wrong, I understand that this is a portion to help those guys. I get that. I fully see that. But having to take the time and explain it with every single one of those phone calls and text messages, it takes a minute and it's frustrating. So on my side, it's like I want to be able to give them an answer, and you really can't without getting into the nitty gritty of it. But it's this portion that's got, we have to get through this.
Yeah.
Whatever, just like right here, what just happened, the recruitment, boom, we got it, we'll
Yeah.
take it, here it is, and just like you said, we'll sing
Well,
this win.
best explanation I can give, because I've had several calls and emails too, is if the bones aren't right, then the rest doesn't matter. And this relationship has to be.
But there's also
Right.
a side of this. There's also a side of this that's just infuriating because the good old latching on to rumors and rumor mills, and all I can do is take the man at his word. And I've had multiple conversations with him since the first meeting, and the man's looked me in the face every single time and told me he has zero intentions of getting rid of the merit system. He's told you the same thing. I know
We've
for a
made that all
fact.
very clear, very public, and very.
Can I speak to
upfront.
that for a second?
Sure.
Just because he doesn't say it doesn't mean there's other entities in powerful positions that haven't made that comment. Now, full disclosure, I haven't heard it out of their own mouths, but I've heard it from very reputable sources. And again, I get the same phone calls. But that's where I think it's very important for this committee to squash that or address it, however that may occur.
Yeah, I don't think we can say it any clearer as many times as possible. The goal of this committee is to improve the relationships between these two bodies.
Right.
It's not to eliminate anything. It's not to eliminate any entity. It's not to change the overall intent and purpose, but it's to change the form and functionality or improve it in ways that we can agree upon will make for a better workforce. There's never been a discussion about eliminating the Merit Council or changing the reason why we exist, but the goal has been, and I don't think I have not heard in probably 100 discussions about this since the summer, not heard anybody disagree with the fact that this relationship is broken and it needs improvement in order to benefit the men and women of the sheriff's office. That's the intent. It is as transparent as it gets, and it should never be mistaken for anything else. And for everybody who's in the audience, please be really understanding and really clear what it is we're trying to improve. We're trying to improve the process that will benefit the officers, and that is the entire purpose of coming together here. So I appreciate you.
Well, I'm gonna recruit because I still look fabulous in uniform. So
Okay.
I'm number one on the list.
Got it. You can be part of the video. Okay. Is there anything else about a recruitment? Because I feel like we maybe have an opportunity. Yes, Ms. Gibson.
The initial paper that I handed to you on page 2, it's the single piece of paper.
Is that the one that says to Larson J at the top?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Number 2. I'm sorry.
On page 2, I'm sorry.
Is that the back?
On the back,
Yes.
where I give you another pamphlet, it's like the code comparison chart.
Okay.
So if you just flip through that and you look through the codes and you look through KPD and you look through us, in terms of recruitment, they offer so much more.
Can
So
you
that-
point to what page recruitment is on that packet?
Well, it's on several, so get the codes, the one that has the 2 columns.
Yeah. What page is sort of the first major section?
Page 4.
Page 4. Okay.
Page 4, I don't know exactly who meets with the mayor. I don't know if it's the FOP president or if they have a representative like we do. but they have an employee representative that meets with the mayor just to, I don't really know what they talk about because I've never been involved in it, obviously, but they at least have those discussions where it's closed, it's closed doors so that they can be real and honest and not have any fear of retribution.
And what does that have to do with recruiting?
It has a lot to, but I won't go into it. We'll go to next. Do you want me to go into it?
If you need to, I'm trying to look at this to say what is the city doing better for recruitment that we're not.
Okay, well, I won't go into that one,
Okay.
then it'll take too long.
Okay.
Page 6.
Page 6. Okay. Page 6.
Down at the bottom, section 2450, pay grades and compensation. Flip to the next page, where they have their salaries listed, midpoint, the minimum, midpoint, and maximum. They have salary increases every year, which is a huge recruiting tool.
So you're saying they have transparency in their pay, so when you're recruiting, you are clearly
Correct.
able to show them here's where you start and here's where you may get to.
Well, they
Yes.
have better salaries, is what you're saying.
But still, the transparency, I think, is what you're pointing to.
Correct.
Not the dollar.
Not only that, but it's written into code. I think that's the big difference that I don't know how to articulate it, but it's in writing in code. That's what they get. It's not up to somebody in an HR department to say you get $10,000 bonus this year.
I see.
It's in the code.
Okay.
So they've got that, they've got education incentives, they have education reimbursement, they have, I think, bilingual incentives. We have nothing to recruit anybody.
So transparency and pay scale, incentives program. Again, not talking about the dollar amount, but these are just tools for recruiting. Yes, sir.
Did you say pay scale?
I did. Transparency in the pay scale and incentive programs. I'm trying to get to the bullet points, not the content.
I'm
of the
sorry,
bullet points.
exactly, that's
Okay.
why I
Okay.
moved on.
What other elements of
Did
recruiting?
you got education incentives?
Well, just incentives in general.
And they have education incentives for higher education degrees.
Okay, so there's education, language, skill sets.
Did you also say reimbursement too?
Education reimbursement programs.
Okay. And it's-
And I think it's just important to note, it's in the ordinance. It's not floating in the air somewhere.
I do think that when we come out of this committee, there are going to be some.
More committees.
No. Well, you never know. It is government. I do. My vision is that when we come out of this, there are some very specific things that we can take back to improvements to take back to commission to say, here's how we'd like to improve it in the structure, the bones again. And then I believe there will also be an accompanying thing, because some of this has to do with the sheriff has to make certain decisions as the chief law enforcement officer and the administrator of the budget. So I believe there will be some things that here's some structural things that we would think will help improve the process and the relationship. I'm guessing there will also be here are 10 recommendations that we feel like are things that you ought to do as policies that will help. And that's what I'm writing down. And so I hope to share some of these things that may not be part of the structural bones, it may be, but some of them are going to be, look, if you want a better workforce, everyone has said, here's things you've got to do as a sheriff and as administration to make things better, or as maybe suggestions as well for the mayor council. So,
Well, hypothetically, if we were going to a recruitment fair and we were standing next to KPD, and it's happened, and they have a really pretty pamphlet that has all these things written in it, and it's law, and then we hand them nothing, who are you going to pick?
yes, sir.
Yeah, so
Thank you for the hand.
I try my best. It's unfortunately for you, the sheriff, for the merit system, this is all coming to a head right now because it's been coming to a head for 23 years. That's what I can sit here and testify to. It's been snowballing that long, and so now it's just with what's happening in the world and everything. Here it is, and so it's all coming out right now, and it's going to continue to come out because I don't care to tell you, 50% of our patrolmen, 50%, not an exaggerated number, 50% of our patrolmen right now have applications out to other agencies. 17 applied to one agency. And I'm saying this out loud because I want everybody to understand what that would do for Knox County. It would cripple law enforcement. All your detectives would come out of the building. They're going to have to go to patrol because if patrol doesn't happen, then there's a serious, serious issue. So I don't know that people know that how complex and the problem that could, the possibilities of what could happen are just terrifying. And we're on the bubble. And like I said, it's not this administration, it's not this merit system. This has been coming for a long time, and unfortunately, you poked the bear. So
That's okay. If you want to make things better, then you gotta do that every once in a while.
And I feel comfortable saying this because you and I have had conversations far before
Sure.
Any of this took place. So that's where we're at, but and that's why I got emotional earlier and got emotional before because all this has happened. And these are, I train these guys. Crystal trains these guys. Crystal's husband trains every single one of them. So it's.
Well, there's no doubt we hear you, and there's no doubt that we all agree this is the time. If we don't come out of this with some things to improve it, then shame on us. And so that's why we're here, and believe me, this doesn't fall on deaf ears, and I hope everybody understands that. That's why we're digging in. Ms. Gibson.
Real quick, I just want to clarify because of how rumors are that the conversations with the mayor would be because the mayor approves our budget, correct? So not only the work environment,
County Commission does.
And he has input and says, okay, exactly. So if we were able to talk to him, we could, beg and plead or something behind closed doors. And I'm just saying, it being in writing would just be, I just wanted to clarify that before I left this meeting and got a phone call, but I said we need to.
So you're saying that one of the incentive, or one of the recruiting tools might be that you have a officer representative that has a direct line of communication
authorized
to the
to have a
mayor,
conversation, yes.
who proposes a budget, but certainly has a great amount of influence on where dollars are spent.
Correct.
And then county, perhaps even with the mayor and the chairman of commission.
It's like a hall pass.
Okay. Representative with direct, I'm just writing down the recruitment tools. Representative with direct access. Okay. Are there other things that are recruiting tools that you can point to in this side-by-side comparison? Not to say that we'll limit it to tonight, but is there any top of mind that you can think of besides pay?
I mean,
Shiny
they're
brochures.
highlighted in the paper,
Okay.
unless you just want me to go through all of them. There's numerous perks on the left column.
We can
versus
review
the
this. I
right-
didn't review this in
right column.
advance.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No problem. Okay, so moving forward a bit. Yes, I'm sorry, Commissioner Durant. Yeah, I didn't see I got to turn right.
It's okay. From our last committee meeting, I think, if I remember correctly, we heard that some, or maybe a lot of the officers don't really know what merit system or merit council does. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Could that also be used as a recruitment tool to know that there is this in place, this protection in place for officers? Because I know I've been in a situation where I did not have that in place and had my direct there was an incident and it involved my direct supervisor, and therefore I could not go to said supervisor. And so that does make knowing that there is some outside entity there to protect employees and to protect officers could be used as a recruitment tool, and that is where we could also do the education piece on what the merit council does for officers.
I think that's
To Commissioner Durant's point, I think that a great deal of your recruitment takes place by word of mouth, by deputies who are out there who have friends or acquaintances who might be interested in law enforcement and doing this for a career. The easier it is for those deputies, the guys and gals in corrections and on the streets, to be able to articulate to them what the merit council does, what the hiring process looks like, whose roles and responsibilities belong to whom, then they can make a better informed decision. We can do all we want at recruitment fairs, and those are valuable, but let's face it, it's word of mouth, and it's those guys and gals out there who say, this is a cool place to work, or, we don't want a piece of this.
And to speak to Lieutenant Gibson's point on it being, on salary being on code, when I was looking for teaching positions, I knew exactly what I was going to get paid based on my year of service, or based on my year of experience. I mean, it's there, it's non-negotiable, and that helped me decide on whether or not I was going to take this job. And so I agree with you on that point, that would definitely be a huge recruitment tool for that.
Can I take it a step further and say that the salary is in code? Also, it shows the availability of promotion. Not just if you want to, let's say, for example, county officers, they need a raise. In hypothetical, we haven't gotten a raise. So what do we do to get more money? We apply for positions within the agency for a promotion. Maybe I don't necessarily want to be a detective, but I apply to be a detective because that is the only route for me to get a raise. However, if you look at the ordinance on, let me find the page. KPD has PO1, PO2, PO3, PO4.
What page is that?
Well, I gotta find it. That is on page 11 of the column sheet, the code comparison chart. Page 11.
Okay.
Police officer 1, 2, and 3, criminal investigator 3. Knox County, we do have that written into our policy and procedure of the Merit Council. Let me find it because I think it's important to note that they have this structure written within ordinance, and they have, so for example, we have Sergeant 1, Sergeant 2. We have Lieutenant. There is no Lieutenant 2. There is no Corrections Captain 2. Why are some tiered to get a raise after I would consider it a longevity benefit in that position? They can advance according to the rules and the policy and procedure. It's on paper. But why do some tiers have that availability, yet others don't? And KPD has it clearly outlined within their ordinance on that page 11, where you could get a raise without moving to a different division that you don't even want to do.
So what I've heard in 3 or 4 things, just to be clear, is the transparency and pay scale is based upon process. When it comes to other agencies like KBD, is based upon process, position, advancement, education, like actual bullet-pointed metrics, or it is an operational
Correct.
process. Whereas currently, right now, it's very subjective.
Yes.
So that, whenever something is subjective, regardless of what it is, it leaves opportunity for inference, it leaves opportunity for rumor, it leaves opportunity for bad behavior, it leaves opportunity for misinformation, misconception. I mean, there's 100 things that, unless it is written out in a structural process, if I'm just making it up based on my feelings and my thoughts, it's not. You're saying that's a negative in the recruiting process.
One boss shouldn't be able to give over $100,000 worth of raises to 4 different individuals within his unit within 4 years.
Okay.
It's written in KBD's policy how they get raises, not just, oh, you're my friend, you get one. Oh, you get one. Merry Christmas to you.
Got it.
That's not how
Okay.
government should work.
Okay. So, transparency and pay scale and process for advancement. Can I ask a recruiting question? I think we touched on this last week. Is everything starts in corrections? Has there ever been a time where you recruited for corrections, but it wasn't always the funnel and the starting point? I mean, you all talked about the fact that regardless of where everybody is right now, and not, that's a different discussion of who's in the hopper, so to speak. But maybe there are some people that are interested in being in corrections, period, and not being on patrol. But maybe there are people who are not willing to go to corrections because their focus is patrol or narcotics or this or that. I mean, we've talked about the old school way of doing it, and we're making improvements. That seems to be a very old school way of recruiting, which is everyone has to start in the jail. Have you guys talked about doing that in a different way?
We've always left that up to the current sheriff and
Okay.
how he would like to do that. So I did have that discussion with Sheriff Spangler when he came in. There was a point in time when Sheriff Jones was in office that they did open up patrol to anybody that never had experience before. Of course, it was very hard on the corrections pool of applicants everybody wanted to apply for patrol and not corrections, whereas they felt that, well, if they didn't make the patrol, then, you know, they wouldn't go to corrections. Or if I expressed an interest in both, but I wasn't selected for corrections, or then I wouldn't get my chance at patrol. Right now, they are taking patrol applicants. We do take, if you're already currently post-certified or a patrol officer, so that is
Okay.
open to hire.
Chief Purvis, I saw you kind of lean in.
Yeah, we did it, and we did take some individuals, and we were taking them straight into the academy, but the overall feeling there really wasn't successful for us because of the individuals just weren't making it through the process. There was some that made it through the process, but it wasn't as, it didn't provide the amount of manpower that we felt that it would, and it did really disrupt the morale of the individuals who had started working for this agency with the hope of one day getting the opportunity to be a patrol officer. Again, our retention rate of corrections was well above the national average because we had that carrot there, but then as our salary didn't stay commensurate with the individuals in the surrounding agencies, the recruitment has become more difficult for us. When our salaries are comparable to other agencies, we tend to get more applicants because we do offer that opportunity for them to go to patrol from corrections. But you know, like I said, you know, we've got a whole bunch of folks within the corrections division right now that are just waiting for their opportunity to get to go to a law enforcement academy.
How many people is that, roughly? How many people are in that waiting pool that really want to advance up out of corrections?
80% of the corrections division.
Which is how many?
It's probably somewhere in the area of about 270, 275.
Okay, so north of 200 people are hoping to get out of there into the next level of whatever.
Yes, sir.
So my next question would be, is in other agencies, either surrounding us or just in the country, is anybody seeing a program that focuses on recruiting people just for corrections and not for corrections with the hope of going somewhere else? Is anybody seeing another program that's it's not about this is your stepping stone, this is your profession, and we're going to treat that in a way? Yep. Mr.
Yeah,
Bro-
I
you,
know
sir.
I've talked to a lot of people that when I went to the FBI Academy, there's tons of people that do it. There's many agencies that do it. But that you know, it's a huge problem. We've got a huge pool of people out there that are waiting to come to patrol, and you know, and now we do. I think we got 8 or 9 that are coming in, going to go straight to patrol, something like that. So it's kind of.
But if you did a recruiting effort, if you modeled a recruiting effort specifically for filling those positions, you could get more people out of there and up the salmon ladder.
So the unfortunate part is nowadays that the recruitment for for a corrections officer, that's a tough assignment. You know, that to me is, if you're going to go that route and stay in corrections, then you better get paid, because it is a nasty job. And even in a nice facility like we've got, you know, that's extremely nice compared to a lot of them, it's not a pleasant job. The body fluids and stuff that I've had thrown at me.
Stuff there.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not a fun job. And then, you know, so we actually did that a few years ago. You know, increase the pay of the corrections guys, which I'm all for it. You know, I did that job before I came out, so I'm all for those guys getting paid. The problem happened there when those guys in corrections came out to patrol. They made more money than the patrolmen that were training them. How does that ever happen? That's where the disconnect happens.
Okay, all right, that's interesting.
So back to those 2 magic words: pay scale.
Mr. Boyles, you were going to weigh in on that?
Just an observation, and that there are other sheriff's departments who have done similar things, and my recollection was that at the time, the jailers were making exactly what a new deputy would make. And so that pay scale wasn't even across the board. Back to the recruitment piece, and I think that some of this we have to consider the cost of putting a sheriff's deputy up on the street and going through the academy, uniform them up, get them through it, and get them out there is expensive. And so as we think about recruiting, there are 3 tiers that we're after, right? So you've got the corrections folks that want to move up. 80% of them want to move up. And they're going to have to go through the academy, and some are going to wash out, some are going to make it. We've also got new non-post certified. So you've got new people coming off the street that you may not necessarily want, may not be your biggest recruiting pool, but they're out there. And then you've got laterals. And laterals are this little pot of gold sometimes, because you're not going to invest all that time in post and all of those things that go along with that. We're going to put them in an FTO program. We're going to give them a little shot of goodness of the way we do it, and then we're going to hit the trail. They're going to hit the roads. And so that's the least expensive process.
Go through those again.
You've got the jailers who want to be promoted, and you've got an incredible number of them, right? Is it fair to say that most folks who are hired with Knox County Sheriff's Department as a jailer want to be a deputy? They didn't come to be a jailer, they came to be a deputy. And that's their desire. So let's not make bones about who they are, what they'd like to achieve in life. So you've got those folks who are still going to have to go to the academy. They're going through a corrections academy, but they're still going to have to go through a academy, a post-certified academy. And all of the expense associated with that, it's significant. I forget what the number is. It gets floated around. It's $100,000. It's, I don't know if you 2 folks can throw
I
it.
think they quantified it somewhere around $100,000.
It's an expensive process.
So
To put somebody through the academy and get them all.
Okay, and then the second.
So that's that group. You've got a group that is non-post certified. They're just plain old rookies. They may be someone who's graduated from Pellissippi or UT, or somebody who's interested in law enforcement, wants to start their career, and they get hired as a new employee and they go through the academy. There's a very small group, my guess is, in doing that in comparison with the KPD, because you have a process that you prefer. But there is that group. And then you have a third group, which is the lateral transfers. And those are the little golden people who don't cost the money to go through the post-certification process. You don't have to wonder whether they're going to wash out. You're just going to put them in an FTO program. There's some extra training that goes along that is unique to the Sheriff's Department in Knox County, and then you're going to put them out there and let them do their thing. That's the least expensive, quickest path to success with a deputy as a lateral transfer. That then goes against the grain of the corrections model of coming up through the process.
Because you may bring somebody in on a lateral that is way higher.
But when we think about budgets and recruiting and fielding officers, what you're talking about the pay scales, part of that is how much it costs to field an officer. If we can take money away from one piece, and I'm not suggesting that I'm the citizen representative, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I'm saying it's less expensive to field a lateral transfer than it is to hire someone or to promote someone. If that makes sense. Out of corrections, I say promote, out of corrections and into the deputy world. It's interesting.
Yes.
One thing I did want to point out is we love laterals. However, because we don't have that extra pay for experience, they have to start at the $38,000 salary. So, and that's the entry level salary, $38,875.
Who's responsible for setting the pay scale?
I think, and it was altered without our knowledge in 2015, so.
So
Not Knox County government, somebody.
is responsible? Okay, so this is an interesting question because
Chris Caldwell does, he can answer all the pay scale questions, obviously, because it is very in-depth and very detailed.
but is that
The sheriff's office sets the pay grade, which is for all positions, which they bring before mayor and council to approve. So the actual pay grade on the pay scale where that is set is.
starts with the sheriff, then it goes to you. Now we approve the budget, but we approve essentially a blank check budget. I mean it's a one lump sum. It may have some details behind it, but at the end of the day, the sheriff can choose to spend it in different ways than. Is that accurate?
The pay scale is actually, we had a consultant that came in and developed it, and then the modification, I'm not too sure on, was spoken of. If there was a modification, I don't know what occurred with it, but the consultant came in, and I think that it went through Chris Caldwell, and I do believe at one point, I think the county commission voted on that pay scale.
All Knox County employees are on that, including sheriff's office, all Knox County are on the
Yeah.
same pay scale.
So the dog catcher is and the guy mowing the lawn at the parks and the sheriff's officers are all in the same bucket?
It's in the same pay, it's on the same pay scale.
They are now.
Yep.
That was changed.
Well, that's interesting. Perhaps not.
We had our own pay, our pay scale was separate for many years. And then I'm not sure what year that was, but
Okay. It would be great to know, perhaps a representative from the law department that is sitting in the room could have somebody in the staff find where county commission might have voted on that, just so we get some context.
I don't think they did. I followed that.
Okay.
That
Let's-
disappeared.
okay.
We'll move on.
Well, let's find that out, because one of the questions I've had, we're not getting into the specifics of the pay itself, but in the topic of, I've always, for years of it, had said, well, if you want to change how much people is paid, then change how they're paid. Change, like, you have a budget. You could say we want to get rid of this, or we want to add this, or we want to get rid of this equipment, or we want to eliminate these positions. I mean, it would seem to start there. But I think not for tonight, but for this process, we do need to have that clarification of if the pay scale was going to be changed to be competitive, how does that process work? So I'm going to sideline that for just a second. It's 5:56, and we had set a set between 5 and 7 for this committee meeting. We've sort of tackled, I think, about 95% of that first topic, which I feel like everybody is on the same page with. I'd like to just do a quick, 5-minute break. Just as soon as everybody's back in their seat, we'll start again.